Hi Booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching Books I'm Not Reading. I'm here today to do a Poetry for Beginners video. I tried to do this last year with Brian from Bookish, and we were trying to do, I think, a video every month, maybe every other month. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't keep up with it. I think Brian continued on, but yeah, poetry is just something that's I'm still really wrestling with, just the form of it and how I'm supposed to understand what's happening in a poem. So the poetry for beginners, like the beginner is me essentially. I want to make that very clear from the beginning. So today I wanted to talk to you about The Captain Lands in Paradise by Sarah, can't see her name there, by Sarah Manguso. I hope I'm saying that right. And so this was part of our poetry collection, and I asked Jason for a recommendation as he has purchased maybe all of the books, almost all of the books up there. I might have one old one that was my grandma's or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, so he said, "Oh, I think you'd like this." And I did really, really enjoy this. So just to tell you a little bit more about her before I get into the poetry part of it. She was born in 1974. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes down here. She's the author of 8 books. She's written short story collections, nonfiction. She's written poetry, obviously. She's done some collaborations with composers, which I think is really interesting. And then her debut novel is supposed to come out this year. Who knows if that will happen or not, but it's called Very Cold People. And I actually have, can you see it with the glare? Anyway, so there is our author. And one of the other books she's written, we also own. This is The Two Kinds of Decay. It's quite an interesting cover, and it deals with living with a chronic illness. So I am curious now to read this. But anyway, I asked Jason, because this was published in 2002, and so I asked Jason, well, how did you find out about this poet? And he just reads so many things online, and he's got so much in his Facebook feed and Booktube and all that kind of stuff that he just knows a ton about it. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't remember where I first heard about her, or maybe he does, and I'm just not remembering the story. But anyway, it's just interesting to me because we have all these tiny little books on the top of our shelf, and there's a reason. I'm sure Jason purchased them, but he couldn't really articulate very well to me why he how he ended up with them. He probably took a poetry class in undergrad and grad school. So anyway, so we have a lot of poetry in the house, and I still just want to keep exploring it. And one of the things, Jason and I have had a lot of conversations about it because I've just been a nag and asking questions. So one of the things I struggle with is I feel like poems are nonfiction in verse. Every poem must be autobiographical, and that's not the case. I actually at one point asked Jason if Sylvia Plath's dad was a Nazi, and he was like, "No, this is a poem. It's not a memoir. It's not not everything. Sometimes things are metaphors, And anyway, so that's one of the things I struggle with. And then after finishing this book this morning, I was asking Jason, well, what did you like about the book, and what or these poems, and what did you think? What was she trying to say? And he just, again, not frustrated, he's very patient with me, but talking to me about like, well, how does a poem make you feel? How do you experience that poem? That sort of thing. So we had a good conversation about that. So for me, and again, I don't want to say like, I can tell you what all the poems in here are about. There were some that I really liked more than others. She has, she has, you can see on this page here, so she has poems that are more kind of like verses, and then poems that are more prose kind of poems. And the prose ones, with the exception of maybe some about, there was one about snow that I thought was really beautiful. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff in here about the natural world, but not necessarily the harsh side of the natural world. There's lots of references to deer, to snow. I'm going to read one of the poems here. But yeah, so I felt very kind of comfortable. I felt like I knew the poet a little bit. By the way, Sarah Manguso was educated at Harvard and, of course, the University of Iowa, and she teaches in the low residency MFA program in a college in LA. But she's, clearly very talented to be able to write not only poetry but also nonfiction, fiction now. To write something that goes along with classical music, I find, again, really, really fascinating. So anyway, I primarily took away from this book a lot of images. There were a lot of, just a couple of lines in a poem that really struck a chord with me and that I enjoyed. So I'm going to read you the very first poem in the book, which is called The Writer. And writer, that's like R-I-D-E-R. Okay. Some believe the end will come in the form of a mathematical equation. Others believe it will descend as a shining horse. I calculate the probabilities to be even at 50%. Either a thing will happen or it won't. I open a window, I unmake the bed. Somehow I am moving closer to the equation or to the horse with everything I do. Death comes in the form of a horse, covered in shining equations. There will be no further clues, I see. I begin to read my horse. The equations are drawn in the shapes of horses. Horses covered in equations. I am tempted to hook an ankle around the world as I ride away, for I am about to ride far beyond the low prairie of beginnings and endings. So I just thought that was great. I really loved kind of the contrast between the equations and the horses, and then the idea of it being both. And, hooking an ankle around a saddle and riding on that horse. And especially, I think, because I do live in a state that is either forest or prairie. And so the prairie of beginnings and endings really, that last line, I found... I don't know, I could just see it and I could feel it, and yeah, I just thought it was great. So I hope you enjoyed that poem. I'd love to hear if you've read anything by her, and if you have any poems that you think I should be checking out this year. I did actually read another collection of poetry. I read Christian Wyman's Every Ribbon Thing, and I could make a video about it, so, but I will try. My goal is to hopefully read at least 4 poetry collections this year, so halfway there. But it could be more than that. I tried not to race through this one, and I probably did go through this book a little faster than I should have in terms of, thinking about the poem and contemplating it. But like I said, I woke up, I don't know, 5:30 this morning or before, and finally just decided to read, and I ended up reading a big chunk at the end of this book. So, all right, Booktube. Again, please feel free to tell me how you are in the comment section down below. Some poets I should be on the lookout for that you love. And if you have any thoughts about this poem or Sarah Manguso, maybe you've read something else by her. So remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll talk to you soon, Booktube. Take care.